Hello, my name is Viktorija Prilenska, and as I already told, I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Tallinn University of Technology, and today I'm going to talk about two projects, and both of them are related to participation. So the first, this is GreenTwins, and there is also one project, a wider one, which is dedicated to different participatory tools. So in the way, this GreenTwins, which is focused on developing these new tools, could be some part of this larger project or larger framework. So public participation is a ubiquitous practice in contemporary spatial planning. And the legal requirements which regulate civic engagement in planning are usually limited to public display and public hearing. So any additional activities are usually dependent on the willingness and resources of the local government. Therefore, participation happens intermittently. Firstly, upon initiation of the plan, and secondly, after planning and design is completed, shortly before implementation. In this intermittent participation process, the role of residents is limited to critics of the ready-made spatial plans. There are various attempts to transfer to the continuous public participation model, where residents are involved early on and continue participating throughout the whole planning cycle. In this continuous participation model, residents take a proactive role and transforms from critics to co-creators of spatial plans. My next slide. This continuous participation model urges for elaborate and diverse stakeholder engagement approach. And the engagement process can be conceptualized in 5 simple steps, which result into a public participation plan. And these steps are, first, know your stakeholders. In this phase, you identify relevant stakeholder groups, current and future. You think of stakeholders' needs, wishes, roles, and capacities. You think also about possible outreach channels. You contact stakeholders and negotiate their participation. And also, important step, you inform the stakeholders about potential drawbacks and benefits of their participation. In the second step, you usually define your goals. This step is usually not discussed. Actually, these participation goals and vision of participation are really rarely discussed. And I think we should emphasize the need to discuss together with the stakeholders what are the goals of participation. The goals can be many and they can vary, but most common stakeholder engagement goals usually include informing stakeholders about the forthcoming plan, collecting contributions or experiential information, which shapes a knowledge base for the forthcoming plan. As I said, we are quite good with collecting knowledge, resolution of different spatial conflicts, and also, the last but not least, the development and investment of social capital. And this goal relates to building the community of active stakeholders and active citizens who in later phases could take active role in discussions of planning issues. In the third step, you usually design your participation strategy. You pick a method of participation that you are going to use. And this methodological choice depends on many criteria. So here I listed 8 most common criteria, which are the number of participants, the geographic scale or thematic scope of the plan. Is it a master plan for the city, or is it just a small design of a square or a public space? Also the planning phase in which participation takes place. Is it pre-design phase? Is it a design phase? Or is it already post-evaluation of the plan? The level of stakeholder engagement, how deep you want the stakeholders to be engaged in the process. Do you want them just to be informed, or do you want them to actively collaborate in developing some planning solutions? Also, it depends on the mode of communication with stakeholders. Is it face-to-face or online? About the skills and resources required from the stakeholders. For example, do you want them to be digital savvy, or do you want them to be some kind of experts? Or is it okay if you just consult the users of the space? And also an important feature, the knowledge needs and the mode of working. How do you want to work, and what kind of knowledge do you want to produce in the process? The fourth step is data collection and analysis. And this step is important if one of your aims or one of your goals was collection of information. So if you collect some data, then you end up with a sample of information, and this data can be of qualitative and quantitative nature. For example, you may launch a questionnaire to find out what are the interest points in the city, and you get a collection of dots and points. But then you need to understand the meaning of these dots, and then you can conduct interviews with local residents to find out why these interest points attract them, what are the activities they are doing in this space, what qualities of the space do they value, and then you can build upon these qualities and develop the city further. And the last step, but not least, is step number 5, evaluate the results. When we were making our project, we had a lot of discussion about this final evaluation phase. It seems that it's quite important for the researcher, the final step where you reflect back on the whole process, but in practice it's not that common. And what we want to emphasize is that it's crucial to reflect of what you have done and ask the following questions. Did you manage to achieve goals outlined in the beginning? Did you manage to engage diverse stakeholder groups? And were the stakeholders satisfied with the process and its outcomes? And based on these answers to these questions, you may brainstorm how to modify your civic engagement strategy in the future. So further in the presentation, I will elaborate a little bit on the importance of picking diverse participation methods to address different target audiences and knowledge needs. And this is very much related to the GreenTwins project, because in GreenTwins, we are developing this some sort of ecology of tools. It's not just a single tool, but these are diverse tools. And the reason we are developing all these diverse tools is it's because we want to address all these different needs and offer different types of co-working together. So as Aya Stephans already mentioned, this is kind of her concept. Professor Aya Stephans conceptualizes spatial planning as a series of diverging and converging communicative actions. So in this diverging phase, you open up to multiple voices and perspectives to create new knowledge and ideas. And that's what Professor Stephans called participation phase. And then in this converging phase, which was entitled as collaboration, you close down to assess the value of these generated values and ideas, to prioritize them, to make the hierarchy of them, and to devise action plans. So in this way, participation methods can be positioned in 4 quadrants, depending on convergence or divergence of knowledge, and also the mode of work, either it's in big groups or in small groups. The distinction between working in big and small groups is made to emphasize the difference of communication opportunities between the stakeholders. So big groups foster participation, so you can reach out to many diverse stakeholders, but maybe the opportunities for dialogue is not that broad, because in big group, not everybody can be heard, but everybody can participate and bring his or her contribution. Whereas small groups, they foster dialogue and empathy building, and thus they are more suitable for this collaboration and hearing each other and talking to each other. So, and we want to emphasize that it's important to when devising your public participation plan, it's important to pick the methods which fit all these 4 categories. So the example above shows a sample of face-to-face and online methods that you can pick to fill all 4 quadrants and thus develop all this holistic and all-encompassing participation strategy, which fits different stakeholders and produces different types of knowledge. For example, you can see that while diverging in big groups, you can produce diverse knowledge or ideas for planning. So, and then when you diverge in small groups, you elaborate kind of a structure and organize knowledge and selected ideas. So, and then if you converge in small groups, you integrate and develop these ideas further on in a collaborative way. So, and this is suitable for both face-to-face and online. And in our GreenTwins project, you can see that we are developing the whole ecosystem of tools. And as I already mentioned, this ecosystem is meant to meet all these diverse knowledge needs and mode of working. So we are creating virtual green planner for divergence and convergence of ideas in big groups. And this tool is suitable for large-scale master plans and discussing the large-scale visions of the areas. And it's meant for everybody to participate, to discuss, to explore. And then we are developing 2 other tools. This is the Urban Tempo and the Hub. And the Urban Tempo and the Hub, they both are meant for divergence and convergence in small groups. Whereas Urban Tempo is more online, then the Hub is more a face-to-face method where you discuss in big room with a group of stakeholders. And all this ecology of this tool is supported by the digital plant and GML ADE databases. So that's in short what we do. And if you're interested on this methodological diversification for more methods, you can consult also kind of a collection of tools. So we have also developed a small toolbox and it's available online. So at participatory.tools. So this is a small selection which contains 32 different methods, and we are going to also position our kind of GreenTwins methods in this toolbox as well. And it also offers 9 different filtering categories, which helps you to select the methods and to draw a better participation strategy in the end. So to conclude, the main takeaway of my presentation would be that it's essential to mix different tools which address diverse audiences and knowledge needs. But remember that participation is not only about producing and collecting contributions and doing the analysis, but it's also about strengthening local communities, which transform from passive to active actors of change. Thank you very much on behalf of the GreenTwins team.